Welcome to Cluster Zero. This week we're going to be focusing on the design process and how to incorporate design into your SLOs and clusters. We all have planned a design process that we're going to be doing within our practicum, and we're going to go through the process today with you guys and hope to get some feedback later on. Enjoy.
Alright, so for my design process for my grade 2 class, we did position in motion. Basically the problem was how Fred and Barney from the Flintstones, their car broke down, so they need to, the students need to help them repair a new vehicle. And the criteria for that is that it needs to be able to move past a meter stick once it's been pushed off.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's a really good one.
Sorry, I forgot to mention the materials. So materials that the students will be able to choose from is tissue boxes in all different sizes. A bunch of lids from products like yogurts or sour creams. They'll be offered skewers, kind of like the frame to their vehicle, rubber bands, a little bit of tape just in case they do need that, and scissors, hole punchers, just kind of your standard classroom materials to cut and paste if you need to.
Cool. For the materials, are you planning on budgeting materials? Like each group only gets like X amount of this and X amount of that? Or is it kind of just you're going to have all the supplies and they can pick if they need 6 lids or 1 lid, or like how do you plan on it? Is it going to be a free-for-all or a budgeted?
I think it's going to be a free-for-all just because I would like to observe whether they can choose. Circular materials are similar in size versus like different sizes,
right.
And then kind of guide them through, okay, well, is that going to work? If it doesn't, how can we kind of change that?
Cool. Thanks.
Interesting.
I hope that works out.
Yeah,
it's really
thanks. I'm excited.
So with my grade 2 class, I'm actually integrating this last SLO with my religion unit. So my SLO is use the design process to construct an object that is buoyant and able to support a given mass or weight. So with my grade 2s, we're also talking about the Old Testaments and different stories within. So our problem is going to be based on Noah's Ark. So God has sent us a message to Miss Bumstead that a flood is coming that's going to last 30 days, and so we need to be able to keep 50 species of animals on our boat in pairs of 2. So they're going to have to construct a raft that can float for 3 minutes, holding 100 pennies. The materials that they're going to be given is modeling clay, tinfoil, straws, no tape because it's just going to get things, like it's just going to get wet and not stick anymore. It is not going to be budgeted for the clay or tinfoil each, but the straws, they're only going to get 6 straws each. I want them to use different, experiment with different ways to do this. They're going to write up a design brief or a design, like a test model before we actually test it out. And Father Mark is actually coming in to bless our boats before we put them into the water.
Cool.
So it's a big integration between our religion and our science unit.
That's super neat how you were able to incorporate those two so well, and I think that the design process is going to be a little bit more meaningful maybe because of that.
Yeah, so we'll see how that works.
Awesome. So for my design brief, I did, it's grade 2, and I did the vehicle construction one, so it's SLO 2314. And what my kids did was, I've already actually done this lesson in my practicum and it went super well. So the students were given the problem that our car ran out of gas and we needed to find a way for our car to make it down a 2-foot slope. So it's got, we had like a 2-foot ramp in our classroom, and the kids were gonna design cars that could get to the bottom of that slope. And so for materials, what we did is we sort of tied in some other social studies aspects, some of the skills in that. So we said any recycling that you bring from home you can use. So you can bring in a full garbage bag of recycling, and you can share with your friends if you don't use it all, or you can bring in just a 3 items and try and make it work, you know? So we really wanted to encourage that recycling and that like awareness of, oh, recycling is good and it helps. So we said like, bring in as much as you can, and whatever you bring in, you can use. So some kids had a ton of recycling and some kids had not so much, but it all depends on what they bring in. And then in addition to that, we gave them things like glue, scissors, tape. We gave them markers if they wanted to decorate and that stuff. And we provided them with paper as the only other substance or material that we let them use. And so the first lesson, we gave them little worksheets and they had to draw out what their car was going to look like. They wrote down a list of what they wanted to use, and then they were able to pass on the materials they weren't going to use. And they made a plan for how they were going to construct it. And then in the next lesson, we had 2 classes for them to construct and build their race cars, and then they were able to test them out, make revisions and revise and make changes to their vehicles. And then they came back and they did a final presentation for the class with their vehicles and showed it going down the ramp. So yeah, that was my lesson.
I think that's a good in-depth lesson where like how it's all broken up so they can think about it. I have a question for you though.
Yeah.
Did the students know that they were going to be collecting recyclables from home to make a car?
Yeah, so they were given notice. They had they were told 2 weeks before, and they said you can bring it in like little by little, or you can bring in just like a huge mound all in one day. So it wasn't just sort of like, oh, tomorrow bring in as much recycle as you can. It was over 2 weeks. Let's see how much recycle we can collect and save. So it was kind of tied into that like environment, like encourage recycling thing.
Good integration, for sure.
Yeah, I was just curious because I felt like maybe the kids were like going through the recycling and wondering what parts could be part of their vehicle, and I think that's really neat.
Yeah.
That they had to be involved in that process.
Yeah, I know that a couple of them came back and said, oh, I finished all my yogurt yesterday so that I could bring in my container. And it was kind of funny. The kids were able to like come back and discuss like what they had done so that they had the right recycling to use. So it was cute.
Another question I have, just because you've already done yours, so you
Yeah.
kind of have that knowledge of it. Did you notice that a lot of the cars all looked the same? Were they all very different? Was there similarities within, like everybody used something for the wheels or size or anything like that?
A lot of it, this was actually super interesting I found, is that a lot of them looked very similar. They couldn't sort of get past the idea that a car was square or rectangle and had 4 wheels. So a couple kids didn't have enough items to use for wheels, and I said, well, why don't we make a car with 2 wheels, or why don't we try and make it with 3? And the kids just sort of said, no, like a car doesn't have 2 wheels, a car doesn't have 3 wheels, and they sort of really had a hard time getting past the idea that not all cars have to look the same, that a vehicle can have like different variations from other ones. So that was, there was a couple kids that sort of tested it out, and then when we were presenting, all the other kids thought that it was such a wild idea. So that was really interesting to see how some of them could sort of grasp that concept and some of them like weren't quite there. So
Do you think that could be also based on language? Like if you presented it to them as like they're gonna make a car, the image that all the kids see in their head is 4 wheels. Do you think that there's another way you could have presented it to maybe encourage them to try things with 1 wheel or 3 wheels, 2 wheels?
I definitely think so, and it was presented that we're gonna make a race car, and I think that really influenced their idea of like a structure. And once we got into the lesson, we said, well, why don't you like instead, if you can't make a car, make a motorcycle. If you can't make like a 3-wheel like vehicle. So I think if we had maybe approached it differently, we'd said like maybe make a boat and see if it can go down the road, like make a bike or something like that. It would have maybe changed things, but I think their vehicle, I think if we had approached that at the same time as making a vehicle, I think maybe there wouldn't be the same quality behind what they were making. It would have been too much too soon, sort of. So the race car route, I think, was right for them, but in an older grade, I would maybe say try out just making a vehicle and leave it nondescript, sort of.
That was a good answer. I just want to play devil's advocate on that one. I just wanted to see it. But yeah, that sounds like a very good design brief.
Yeah.